Hello, friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Fear as the essence of Russia. In a recent episode of Olga Skabeeva's program 60 Minutes, the main nerve of modern Russian propaganda was once again revealed. Not just a show of force, but the creation of a sense of global siege, in which Russia is the only country that has retained reason and courage in the face of the madness of the West. This is no longer news. It's a military declaration presented in a televised format. 1. America as a war factory. Skabeeva opens the episode with an alarming figure. The US military budget is $925 billion, 6 times greater than Russia's spending. This statistic is followed by an immediate contrast. Not just they are richer, but they are the source of evil. The US Senate has launched a new round of escalation. This figure is the basis for an entire myth. The US isn't just supporting Ukraine, it's profiting from the war by selling weapons to NATO. Every fact is transformed into a moral indictment. America is fighting out of greed, Ukraine out of dependence, Europe out of fear. $500 million for Kyiv, 0.05% of the budget, is described as a handout. With this image, TV propaganda achieves a double effect. Domestically, it asserts that the West is tired of Ukraine, and internationally, that Ukraine is being used as expendable material. 2. The Tomahawk as a new symbol of fear next. Skabeeva moves on to her favorite topic, Tomahawk missiles, transforming a technical issue into a myth about a deadly frontier. Senator Fetterman demands that Kyiv immediately receive cruise missiles and stop being shy. This story has several converging meanings. First, Russian viewers are led to believe that the transfer of Tomahawks is inevitable, meaning a threat is looming. Second, the idea is presented that the US is doing this not for Ukraine's sake, but for its own PR, in exchange for Trump's Nobel Prize. This is followed by a long, almost documentary-like sequence about missile characteristics, ranges, trajectories, and launch options. This isn't journalism, it's a ritual of militarizing consciousness. Skabeeva draws a detailed map of possible strikes, citing a range within 3,500 targets in the European part of Russia, and then immediately adds, the response could be anything from Oreshnik to tactical nuclear weapons. This creates an atmosphere of doom. The viewer is convinced that war with the West is already underway, and all that remains is to choose the form of retaliation. Democratic Senator John Fetterman demands the immediate transfer of Tomahawk cruise missiles to Kyiv and an end to any shyness about this. Following Zelensky, Fetterman promises to nominate US President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize in exchange for these deadly weapons for the next Peace Prize. The fact is that the Norwegian committee announced that Trump will not receive the award this year. The prize was awarded to Maria Corina Machado, a former Venezuelan parliamentarian, for her fight against the dictatorship, that is, the legitimately elected President Maduro. Footage from a live broadcast from Oslo. The ceremony is being broadcast live on your screens right now. It has been stated that opposition leader Machado is keeping the flame of democracy alive in times of darkness. Trump, therefore, supports nothing. His NATO representative, Wedeka, stated that Washington possesses powerful weapons that have not yet been used in Ukraine. He noted that these systems could cause serious damage to Russia, which is intriguing, but likely refers to Tomahawks. The British newspaper The Sun believes that if these dangerous long-range missiles are delivered, Russian air defenses will face a terrifying choice. 3. Europe as hostage and accomplice. The next section is about Europe. The EU is portrayed as a weak-willed vassal, deprived of an independent position. Europe just imposed the 19th round of sanctions. Russia is not in a strong position, economically or militarily. But then comes a reversal. Supposedly, Trump, NATO, and Germany are afraid to use force and therefore have no control over the situation. Skabeeva contrasts decisive Putin with confused Europeans, thereby creating an internal narrative of strength. We are alone against everyone, but we are not giving in. In her story, Europe is not an ally of Ukraine, but an instrument of pressure on Russia, controlled by the US Senate. 4. The confluence of two wars, Ukraine and the Middle East. At the end of the program, Skabeeva abruptly shifts the focus: Gaza, Israel, Hamas, Trump. At first glance, it's a different topic, but in fact it's the same pattern. America incites, Israel submits, and Russia watches like a wise witness. In return, Trump promised to turn Gaza into a Hamas-free paradise. This scene is used to demonstrate a double standard. When the US bombs, it's peacekeeping, while when Russia attacks Ukraine, it's aggression. Propaganda conflates conflicts to suggest that the entire world is a single battlefield, where the West perpetually destroys and Russia restores justice. This was the program Empire of Lies. See you soon.